After World War II, the Soviet and American secret services opened a real hunt for the secret developments of the Third Reich. The Americans were luckier in this respect. They were the first to find the Third Reich's missile center in northeast Germany. Before I start the video, I want to tell you that I opened a new channel, Wisioner History, with interesting and mystical facts. You will definitely not be bored. The link to the channel is placed in the description and in the pop-up menu. Go to it and subscribe. Here we go. Then they took out all the equipment, all the drawings and all the specialists there, including Wernher von Braun, the creator of the first ballistic missiles. He would later be considered the father of the American space program. When the area came under Soviet control, there was nothing there. From declassified documents, to the chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Union of the Soviet Union, to Comrade IV Stalin. In accordance with the decree of the Council of Ministers of the USSR, the representatives of the Special Committee got acquainted with the state of work on restoration of models and technical documentation of reactive armament in Germany, and in this connection we report, as we have established, systematic work on jet armament in Germany began in 1930. In 1936, the Germans began building the largest scientific, testing and production center for jet technology at Peenemünde on Usedom Island. And the main task of the Jet Center was to develop long-range FAU-2 missiles, and, somewhat later, work on liquid propellant anti-aircraft missiles began there as well. In late 1942, the assembly workshops were completed and put into operation for mass production of FAU-2 missiles, designed to produce up to 20 missiles a day. The institute was located on the territory of about 80 square kilometers. It included more than 150 buildings and structures with the total area of more than 200,000 square meters. The capacity of the surviving power plant of the institute, 30,000 kilowatts. The number of employees and workers at the institute reached 7,500,000. The scientific director of the institute was Professor Wernher von Braun, who had been working on missiles since 1932. The scale of the work of the institute can be judged by the 11 giant stands, up to 30 meters high. They easily accommodated large projectiles like the FAU-2 for various kinds of tests. Before the Soviets occupied the area, the Americans and then the British took out all the leading German specialists, complete technical documentation and serviceable samples of FAU-2 rockets. The special equipment, stands, control panels, control equipment, etc., was largely rendered unusable. Because of this, the Soviet specialists had at their disposal only scattered FAU-2 units and a small amount of technical and technological documentation. Soviet specialists organized a search for technical documentation, samples of individual assemblies and devices on the territory of Germany and its occupied countries. For example, some drawings of the FAU-2 rocket were found in Prague, Vienna, and other cities. The rocket engine of the FAU-2 rocket is sufficiently perfected. The engine has a thrust equal to 25 tons. The engine of our experimental liquid propellant jets gives a thrust of no more than 1,200 kilograms. The flight range of FAU-2 is 250 to 270 kilometers. Explosive material in the head part of the rocket holds up to 800,1000 kilograms. The Germans plan to develop long-range missiles by forcing the jet engine, as well as the transition to new rocket schemes. For example, according to information received from the Germans, they were developing long-range gliding missiles. We have not found any documentary evidence on this subject. Conclusions and suggestions. 1. The available FAU-2 missile models and technical documentation will make it possible to develop the FAU-2 missiles in the Soviet Union after gathering the missing materials and drawings. The mastering of the FAU-2 in Germany and then in the Soviet Union by our Soviet engineers and scientists would enable us to master the basics of modern reactive armament and carry out further work on development of more powerful reactive armament. All the leading engineers of the Third Reich were relocated to the American zone of occupation. Meanwhile, the Soviet secret services searched for the remaining German specialists who had worked with von Braun. However, all attempts ended in failure. Unexpectedly, the Soviets receive a report through agents that the wife of German specialist Helmut Grettrup, who worked with von Braun on the German rocket program, wants to meet with them. Grettrup's wife made it clear that it was she, not her husband, who decided all the issues. She was not satisfied with the Americans' conditions, and she and her husband were ready to go to the Soviet side on the condition of complete freedom. According to her, Helmut was von Braun's deputy for radio control of missiles. The Soviet Secret Service agreed to all the conditions stated by the German couple, and in 3 days, during a special operation, the entire Grettrup family was transferred to the Soviet zone of occupation. An attempt was also made to transfer Werner von Braun to the Soviet zone, but the operation failed. The U.S. Secret Service protected him as a very important person. In the city of Nordhausen, Soviet specialists set up an institute to study German Fa-2 missiles. Nordhausen consisted of 3 rocket assembly plants: the Rabe Institute, the Sommerd plant, engaged in the assembly of control systems equipment, and the Montaigne plant, which manufactured engines and turbopump units. The plant was headed by Lev Mikhailovich Gaidukov. Korolev was appointed chief engineer, and Valentin Glushko headed the Fa-2 engine research department. Grettrup was one of the leaders of the work to restore Fa-2 production. German specialists began to restore the equipment and documentation according to the designs of Werner von Braun. In April 1946, they managed to assemble 7 Fa-2 missiles. 3 of them were sent to Moscow, and the rest began to be prepared for bench tests. The Soviets, together with the Allies, came to an agreement that Germany was subject to complete demilitarization. That meant that the development of any weapons on that territory was prohibited. In August 1946, the Soviet Union decided to remove all major German specialists to its territory. Selected German scientists were taken to the USSR regardless of their consent. They were placed on the territory of the former Sanitary Technical Institute on Gorodomlya Island, on Lake Seliger. It was an ideal place in terms of security. It was impossible for foreign intelligence to penetrate there. German specialists worked in very comfortable conditions. All their needs were provided for. Soviet engineers thoroughly studied all the features of the German Fa-2, after which it was decided to build its exact copy. Soon, under the leadership of Sergei Pavlovich Korolev, the first Soviet large ballistic missile R-1 was created. It was based on the German Fa-2. The Soviet copy was equipped with more powerful engines and an automatic inertial guidance system. Single-chamber R-1 engine was powered by a fuel consisting of liquid oxygen and 70% water solution of ethyl alcohol. On September 17, 1948, the first Soviet ballistic missile was launched at Kapustin Yar test site, but due to malfunction of control system, the first launch of R-1 was unsuccessful. However, less than a month later there was a successful launch. The R-1 had a number of shortcomings, but at the same time Soviet engineers were already working on more powerful ballistic missiles. The V-2 and R-1 missiles helped create all the conditions for the development of a new type of weapon. Boris Chertok, Korolev's closest associate, said that the significance of the V-2 and R-1 cannot be underestimated. It was a breakthrough into an entirely new area of technology, which contributed greatly to the formation of the Soviet rocket and space program. I thank you for watching. Your support is very important to me. Your comments and thumbs up motivate me to release new videos on interesting topics. Subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the new videos.